Hey, so how's it going? In about 3 or so weeks, I'm going to be turning 50 years old. I'm clearly long over the hill by now, but I've been thinking about that a lot. And I'm not one to dwell on my mortality that much, but I have been thinking a lot about things like legacy and whatnot, and what I'm going to leave behind for my kid, what I'm going to leave behind for my family, what I'm going to leave behind for, the people that appreciate the things that I do, that go and they use what I give them to go and make certain things, what I'm going to leave behind for you. Of course, it's going to be a long time. Fingers crossed it's going to be a long time before that becomes a thing. But it does have me thinking about what's happening here. What am I making for you that is going to be part of the legacy? That's super deep and kind of weird because what I really came here to talk to you guys about was image resolution. Let's go. What's going on, y'all? My name is Dave Connery. I'm an artist designer based in Southern California. And hey, you may have seen this piece before. You look at it. What you haven't probably seen a whole lot of is me wearing a red shirt, red hat. Before I get started with the other things that I need to talk about, let me tell you about this and that. A buddy of mine, his father passed away from leukemia 11 years ago. His name is TG. He's an artist friend of mine, and he is hosting an event this particular Saturday. If you're following this anytime after October 10th, then you could probably skip right past this. I'll have a link in the bottom in the description where you can jump past this part. So he's having an event where he's raising money for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I think that's what it is. He's raising money for that. And so what I am doing is I am raffling off tickets for this painting. You go to my website. I'll put a link in the description. You go to the website, you buy a raffle ticket, or you buy multiple raffle tickets, and that puts you in the running. And then Monday, October 12th, at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live on TikTok, I'm going to be raffling this thing off, and one lucky person is going to win it. There is a cost. Yes, there is a cost involved. All proceeds, minus my cost for shipping wherever I ship it, all proceeds are going to go directly to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society in TG's name. If you are interested in getting a 24 by 24 inch canvas, one of my favorite pieces recently, by the way, if you're interested in a chance at that, go check out the website. Okay, that's the only ask I'm going to do in the front half of this video. So let's move on to what's really important here and what I want to talk to you guys about. I want to talk to you about a couple of different things. Number one, talking about the legacy of this video, as I was mentioning in the beginning. Okay, first off, slow it down, Dave. I had a couple of people tell me that I talk too fast, but well, whatever. Stop watching the video at 1.5 speed and you won't have to worry about me talking too fast. In fact, you may want to slow it down a little bit. If you just can't seem to pick up what I'm dropping down too fast, if it's too fast, then you're moving too slow. Let's go. Anyway, so what I was talking about is the idea of like, what is the legacy of what I want to be doing here? And I really I have this affinity for storytelling. Meaning I like to tell stories. I like to share those stories in context of whatever it is that I happen to be doing, whether it's painting art or making digital work, on my laptop or whatever this thing is, iPad. Telling the stories around that, telling the stories in regarding the family and the work and everything that goes around with not just because we're not just machines. We're not just here like plugging away on computers and say, hey, Shopify and Affinity Photo and Adobe this and Designer and Instagram and all. We're not just all that all the time. In fact, that's a very small portion of my time. And I'm sure it's a very small portion of your time. And so maybe incorporating more of the story again, because I used to do that more, but incorporating more of the story into the daily life will give more context to some of the things that we're doing here. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot. I'm not going to go too deep into it beyond that here, but I just want you to know that that's something that we're going to be thinking about. But now that we're not thinking about that, let's talk about what I really came here to talk about. So I'll show you something. Last time I put up a video, I talked about how I was going to be taking something from start to finish. And I was originally saying I was going to use a different piece of artwork, but then I made this piece. The reason I made this piece is, number one, I'm a big fan of Jean-Michel Basquiat. If you're not familiar with Jean-Michel Basquiat, please go look him up because he is an important figure to me and to other people. But one of the things that I have been thinking about a lot is trying to create more stuff that has a bit more of a streetwear appeal to it. Am I the greatest harbinger of streetwear style? No, I'm not. But I'm kind of dabbling in that. And so I know that Jean-Michel Basquiat has a bit of a connection, not just to creative people like myself, but also to the hip-hop world and whatnot. And so I wanted to do something that kind of embodied him and kind of made all these kind of cross-reference ideas. And there's more, like, I'm serving several masters in this piece. Number one, Basquiat himself. Number two, a little bit of the kind of the Warhol-esque aspect of this almost like overprint feel of things. Number three, saying Picasso baby is actually a reference also, number one, to Picasso, but also to JC. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. If you don't, you better go ask somebody. So I'm using this piece as the thing that I'm going to be creating multiple pieces for. I've already created some shirts for it. I think I'm going to make a sticker out of it. I'm also going to be doing a couple other things. Before I continue, I want to acknowledge the elephant in the room. If anybody was paying really close attention, you'll notice that my shirt color changed, because that was between the last segment and this segment, I spilled paint. I'm always working on multiple things at once, and I spilled a little paint on the shirt, and so, yeah, I had to change. Anyway, so in regards to this piece right here, I want to talk about a couple things. Let's talk about appropriation. Let's talk about the idea that I've used an image, the very popular image of Jean-Michel Basquiat, and I've actually used it to my benefit to create this piece of work. What kind of right do I have to use that piece and turn it into my own? That's a tough question. That is a really tough question. And honestly, if I was really eager to find out, I would go ask an attorney. But I'm also under the belief system that you should beg for forgiveness instead of asking for permission sometimes. And yeah, we're going to do it this way because I think that, number one, Basquiat would probably have been okay with it. Warhol would definitely have been okay with it. Picasso maybe not so much, but still, I think that there is a reasonable amount of distinction between the really popular photo of Jean-Michel Basquiat and my art. This is obviously, it's a tribute. Now, could I get in trouble? Yeah, probably. Maybe I could. But you know what? I'm pushing forward because I think that the artist would be okay with it. Will the artist's estate have something to say? Sure, but that's my business of whether I get to deal with that or not. But that's their business of whether they get to reach out to me or not. But that's what we're pushing forward. That's a conversation for another time about copyright and public, or what is it, the infringement and intellectual property and all that. And there's so many nuances to that it would definitely be a conversation we could have. But we're not going to have that conversation today. We're just going to talk about the fact that, hey, I did what I felt was enough of a distance between that photo and my image that you can't really make that kind of a claim. But I could be wrong. I'm not an attorney. Don't take my advice. You got to do you. What is the risk, though? The risk is this. If I go and put this on shirts and on mugs and on stickers and I sell a bunch, well, then I'm going to be potentially in big trouble if an attorney turns around and says to me, hey, you can't do that. Cease and desist and give us all your money and we're suing you for everything you got. Absolutely, positively could happen. What if, for instance, I did this and it became so popular, it became my most popular piece to date, and I sold a bunch? Well, they could get all that money. What if I sold absolutely nothing? Well, they could still come after me and still come after my money. Should you use somebody else's image to make your own image? The cautious side of me wants to say, no, you should not. The adventurous side of me wants to say, hey, do so at your own risk. Again, not your attorney. But I'm putting this up on a t-shirt and a mug and a sticker and a thing of something, maybe, I don't know, a fanny pack. It's going on something, and somebody else is going to have to stop me. That right there, folks, is your 1 minute of bad advice. Looking for a change of scenery. Came in here to the house, and wife's on a call, so let's go outside. Okay, so let's talk about pixel resolution for a second, because I think that this is an important conversation, especially in regards to print on demand, because a lot of people get this confused. They get it wrong a lot of times, and really it just comes down to understanding that what matters is the pixel size more than anything else. A lot of print designers are probably going to laugh in my face. They're going to say, nah, it's got to be 300 DPI and it's got to be this and that. Listen, multiple years in the print industry, worked for a magazine publisher for over a decade, and I understand the whole print resolution thing. You need to print at 300 DPI. Your images have to be a certain size at that DPI. You print at that size, and then your images get printed in the crispness that they need. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't seem to understand. 300 DPI is not universal. It's universal for certain types of printing, but not all printing requires 300 DPI. Printing also requires CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, for their processes. But Print on demand does not. When you print on a piece of paper, especially if it's coated paper, you're going to want a different pixel resolution than if you print on something that has a little bit more of a dot gain, like a fabric or an uncoated piece of paper. You ever print on newsprint? Like paper, like newspaper print, you know what I'm talking about. All you got to do is put a little dot of ink on that and it goes everywhere. You don't want 300 dots per inch on newsprint because it bleeds. So 300 dots per inch is not necessarily the go-to on all circumstances. In fact, it's definitely not the go-to in all circumstances. So let's not worry about that so much as worry about what are the dimensions that we need. Here's the thing. A 5,000 by 5,000 pixel image at 150 DPI is exactly the same as a 5,000 by 5,000 pixel image at 300 DPI. The only difference between those two is that at 150 DPI it can print bigger than at 300 DPI it prints smaller. But when we're talking about print on demand, especially with companies like Printify or Printful or anybody that's of that same caliber, they do all the math for you. You give them your image file at whatever resolution is required, and they generate a print file based on that, because you don't necessarily want to have to create images for every particular circumstance. If you want to put something on a towel and then put it on a coffee mug or a sticker, you don't want to have to compensate, because an image that's big enough to go on a towel may not necessarily be the best image size to go onto a coffee mug. But when you upload your large 5,000 by 5,000 or 10,000 by 10,000 pixel image so that it fits up onto a bedspread or a shower curtain or whatever, they do the processes in-house. Their computers, their algorithm, their machine learning figures out, okay, this is what that image needs to be for that big thing, but what if he wants to turn that into a sticker? So you go and you make that a sticker, and their processes creates the print file specific for their needs. Long story short is, stop worrying about the DPI. The DPI does not matter. What matters is, are they asking for a particular pixel ratio? And then if so, cater to that. Now, if your piece is only going to be on t-shirts and smaller things like mugs and stickers and whatever, keychains, whatever you're going to make, so be it. Then you don't necessarily need to go super huge, like 5,000 to 10,000 pixels, anywhere in that range. But if you're going to be up on pillows and blankets and umbrellas or beanbags or whatever it is that your print provider does, then you're going to want to compensate for that. You're going to want to make your image as large as you possibly can. Another sidebar example of this is places like Redbubble and Society6. With Redbubble and other places like that, you go and you drop your file in there, and then you can automatically just start laying things out all over the place in every particular product. Redbubble is doing all the heavy lifting as far as figuring out, okay, that thing needs to be this big for a bedspread and this big for a mug. So we're going to figure out the dynamics, the technology that makes it fit into that spot. All you have to do is make sure that your original image is at the right pixel resolution for the biggest thing you want to make. Right now, Picasso Baby is not big enough to go on a bedspread, at least not according to Redbubble. If I wanted that to happen, I should have built it bigger. What is the resolution in this thing, by the way? It's currently at 4,700 pixels by 6,700 pixels, so it's decent size, but it's not going into Redbubble, at least not like this. I would have to upsize this. I would need to upsize this if I wanted to make it into a bedspread, but I'm not really into that. I don't think anybody, I don't have people clamoring to have my art on bedspread, so I'm not that worried about it. But it's a great resolution for t-shirts, for pillowcases. Would you sleep next to Jean-Michel Basquiat? I don't know, but it could happen. But it's going on a t-shirt. It might go on a mug. It might go on a sticker. All of those things are going to work. This size is going to work for that because I built to the specifications of the print-on-demand partner, not based on some idea that print has to be a particular DPI. That doesn't matter. At least not for our purposes when we're talking about print-on-demand. Now, if you're going to go and turn that into a zine or a comic book or a book with all your art, that's a different story. We'll talk about that some other time if you want. But for our purposes, print on demand and selling it to the masses through Shopify, we don't worry about the DPI. All right, that's gonna do it for this one, folks. Next time, when I actually do make a video, I'm gonna tell you about how I got all that up into Printful and the processes that I've done within Shopify so that you know, like, the things that I think about when I upload something, as far as like how the listing works, what I'm thinking about as far as Shopify goes, and then maybe externally, like I'm thinking to myself right now, like how am I gonna market all this? Those are future videos, future topics. Come back next time. If you haven't done so already, folks, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you hit that bell so you never miss a thing. Go down below and tell me what you think about everything we talked about. And then if you enjoyed this video, share it with your homies. Oh, and of course, if you guys are interested in getting a shot at that piece of art for as little as $5 in the raffle, then by all means, go check it out. All the money goes to a really good charity, and I promise you, we will do the big reveal later on who won and where it's going and all that. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend. Remember, be good today, be even better tomorrow. See ya.